whom I uphold, my chosen one in whom I delight. I will put my spirit on him, and he will bring justice to the nations. He will not shout or cry out or raise his voice in the streets. A bruised reed he will not break, and a smoldering wick he will not snuff out. In faithfulness he will bring forth justice. He will not falter or be discouraged till he establishes justice on earth. In his law the islands will put their hope. This is God's word. You may be fellow believers, righteous in Jesus Christ. Epiphany. Next the number of weeks, we will go and continue our Epiphany season. That season that would lead us up to Lent, Ash Wednesday, beginning of March. That season in which we emphasize again that word epiphany, meaning to make manifest, to make known, to be revealed. And what is being revealed that we emphasize in our worship services? That Jesus Christ, who is God from eternity, became a human being, revealing himself as true God and true man in order to earn our salvation, and revealing that in different ways, including this morning emphasizing his revelation that even as God, who is sinless, he wants to be associated with us, Jesus, to fulfill all righteousness. Not that he needed to be baptized to fulfill any righteousness for him or something from the Old Testament to be made righteous, but to be righteous, to fulfill all righteousness, and that everything that had to do with us as sinners, Jesus was now in his baptism publicly showing that I am now continuing on with my mission, which is, we'll get to that in a second, but that's this Epiphany season. The Epiphany season, the revelation of who Jesus is, and the fact again that he is for everyone. That every single person in the world needs Jesus Christ. And this morning, as we look again at his baptism, as I just mentioned, we look at what did Jesus come to do that we need? What is it that everyone needs? And maybe we would think about saying, I need love. What I really need in my life is love. What God's people really need is love. What the world needs is love. And to a certain extent that is true. But we need love not in a generic sense. We need something that is love that would be given to us because of God's love. And really what we need most, what each one of you need and what I need, is righteousness. I need righteousness. I need justice. We'll mention that in a second. What is all this talk about justice? But this morning again, as we look at something that seems to be so inconsequential, Jesus being baptized, but in his baptism, as we hear Jesus as the servant of the Lord, he serves up righteousness. He serves us with his righteousness and giving that to us. He serves us that righteousness by breaking the mold. He breaks a mold that we wouldn't expect of how we would become righteous before God. By breaking that mold without breaking backs. Doesn't break our backs, B-A-C-K-S. And he serves up righteousness without himself having to break. We look from this text in the Old Testament that is there before us, and we look at it and say, let's be sure, how can we be certain that this is talking about Jesus? I mentioned that at the beginning when we read from our text. Here is my servant. Here's the God the Father speaking. Here is my servant. How do we know the rest of this is talking about Jesus? Is it something the church made up? Well, listen to these words. See if they sound familiar. Here is my servant whom I have chosen, the one in whom I delight. I will put my spirit on him, and he will proclaim justice to the nations. He will not quarrel or cry out. No one will hear his voice in the streets. A bruised reed he will not break, and a smoldering snuff out till he has brought justice through to victory. In his name, the nations will put their hope. That's from Matthew, from the Old Testament, from the New Testament. Doesn't that sound what we just read? It's a prophecy going back and saying, look, this is referring to Jesus. It's referring to his ministry. So it's not something that we just willy-nilly pick up and say, oh, it's got to refer to Jesus. The Bible tells us it does. And even that part that you heard in the text, listen to something else in the New Testament. Does this sound familiar? And a voice from heaven said, this is my son whom I love. With him I am well pleased. You heard that at the baptism of Jesus from our gospel. But the text also says, my chosen one in whom I delight. Does God the Father delight in his servant, the Son, Jesus Christ? So yes, he does. So we have this manifestation. Jesus Christ, the Son of God, comes to serve. How about this? Does this also sound familiar? While he was speaking, a cloud appeared and covered them, and they were afraid as they entered the cloud. A voice came from the cloud saying, this is my son whom I have chosen. Listen to him. When the voice had spoken, they found that Jesus was alone. The disciples kept this to themselves and did not tell anyone at that time what they had seen. Remember when Jesus was transfigured up on that mountain with Peter, James, and John? And there is my son, listen to him. The idea also at his baptism, the Father speaking to Jesus. So these words, it's a fantastic prophecy, as so much of Isaiah is, of who